All right. Welcome back to episode 2 of the Surface Fires for Dummies series. So, I'm going to be going over the fire for effect call for fire with artillery and mortars. So, I'm going to start off with what is a fire for effect mission? Fire for effect mission is when you are skipping the adjusting slash correction phase of the call for fire and you are just going straight into the fire for effect phase. So, when should an fire for effect mission be used? You're going to be use this when you are basically just positive that your target location is correct, or at least accurate to the point where you're going to get effects on target within that first round impact. And what method of target location should the observer use? So we have three options here. So first we have the standard, which is going to be grid. So grid, this is what you typically will always be using. So I'm just going to denote that this is the standard, and 9 times out of 10, this is what you're going to use because it is the most reliable, and pretty much you're going to get the most bang for your buck with this method of target location because it is accurate and maybe not as accurate as number 3, which I'll talk about in a second, but it takes significantly less time. Number 2, you have polar. So when would you use polar? You're going to use polar when you don't have enough time to pull a grid. So this is going to be like if you are in a pinch and you just need to get rounds downrange quickly, and an immediate suppression, which I will go over in episode 3, just won't cut it. So you need more than 2 guns and 2 rounds, so 4 rounds in total. So you could use polar. And if you do not know what polar is, it's when you take the direction and distance from you to the target as your target location. So the direction is going to be in mils grid and the distance in meters. The final method target location will be shift from known point. So shift from known point is known to be the most accurate method of target location. However, it's kind of a lot of effort and requires prerequisites. One of them being you need a known point established between you and the battery, and that is not always afforded to you. So even alongside that, you have to do the worm formula and a bunch of other stuff, which is just kind of not really worth it. Most observers can agree that shifting on point isn't necessarily the best option. So I would pretty much always rely on grid. So now we're going to get into the actual 3 transmissions to initiate the call for fire for effect. And we're going to assume we are using the grid method of target location because that is standard and the most used. So let's assume the battery, its call sign is Steel Rain. And my call sign will be Misfit 11. So the first transmission is going to sound like Steel Rain. This is Misfit 11. Fire for effect, over. You're going to get into your second transmission, which is going to be your method of target location. And it's going to be grid. So we're going to say November Tango 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6-digit grid will typically always suffice for artillery unless you're using a special round, such as Excalibur, which is GPS guided. In that situation, you'd give a tangent grid, but with just typical HEPD rounds, high explosive / point detonating rounds, 6 digits will suffice just fine. And make sure you specify the 100,000 square meter identifier, and you give your easting and northing. So the second transmission is going to sound like grid, November Tango, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Over. And finally, the last one is going to be our target description, which also can include the method of engagement and method of fire and control if I wish to modify that. However, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to do that. So I will go over the methods of engagement and methods of fire and control in a later episode. But for now, we're just going to assume that I'm just going to go with the standards for all of them. And when it comes to artillery and mortars and naval surface fire support and surface to surface fires in general, if there's a standard, you're going to completely omit that from the call for fire. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to assume I'm going to be shooting at 1 by T-72. In the open. Now remember, with your target description, you need to add you need to include the size, type, and degree of protection. So here with the number 1, that will be the size. So we have the size, the type. What is the target? It's a T-72, a Russian main battle tank, and then degree of protection in the open. STD. Size, type, degree of protection. So I have filled out all those categories and provided my target description. So the full call for fire is going to sound like Steel Rain. This is Misfit 1-1. Fire for effect over. The battery is going to read back Misfit 1-1. This is Steel Rain. Fire for effect out. I'm going to say grid November Tango 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Over. Battery's going to read back grid November Tango 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out. Then I'm going to transmit 1 by T-72 in the open. Over. And the battery's going to read back 1 by T-72 in the open out. And just like that, I have initiated my fire for effect call for fire. So now the battery has my fire for effect call for fire, so they are going to come back to me with the message to observer. If you are not tracking on what the message to observer is or what it contains, refer back to episode 1, the adjust fire call for fire how-to guide. I'll throw up a card in one of the top corners of the screen. I forgot which side it populates on. But go to that, and in the description of that video, there are timestamps. Find the message to observer, and it will explain everything for you there. But moving on from that, the battery's going to come to me with message to observer, Steel Rain, 3 guns, 3 rounds, target number Kilo Alpha 1077, over. And remember, the message to observer must be read back verbatim, so the observer is going to read back message to observer, Steel Rain, 3 guns, 3 rounds, target number Kilo Alpha 1077 out. So if you remember from episode 1, you had to send direction after the message to observer or in your first correction. With the fire for effect mission, because you are making no adjustments / corrections, sending your direction is unnecessary. So you can just completely omit that. So when the battery is ready to fire, because the standard is when ready for the method of control, they are going to transmit target number Kilo Alpha 1077 shot, over. Immediately, the observer is going to read back target number Kilo Alpha 1077 shot out. And again, it is optional for the battery to transmit, but depending on unit SOP, they might. The battery's going to say splash over, which is a courtesy call from the FDC, Fire Direction Center, where they are letting the observer know to keep their head up because the round is 5 seconds from impacting. The observer does not need to read this back. So after that, the round's impacted. the observer is going to see the rounds, and when the battery is done firing, as in they've put the last volley into the tubes and shot it, which in this instance, there are 3 volleys because there are 3 rounds being shot by 3 guns. So in total, 9 rounds coming through 3 volleys. So after that third volley leaves the tubes, the battery is going to transmit this. Once the observer actually sees that last volley impact, they will transmit back target number Kilo Alpha 1077 rounds complete out. Remember not to say this immediately after the battery transmit rounds complete because you have not observed the last volley impact yet, because you have to account for the time of flight it takes for the round to leave the tube and impact in the target area. So now all the rounds have impacted. You have transmitted the rounds complete call over the radio, and the fire mission is essentially over. So now you need to end the mission through your end of mission statement, REMS, which I go through REMS in episode 1. So if you do not understand this concept, defer back to episode 1, same thing. It'll be in the description. There will be a timestamp for it. So the observer is going to transmit target number Alpha Kilo 1077, end of mission, 1 by T-72 destroyed, over. So you give the target number, because that's what you preface everything with, the end of mission call, and then your surveillance. And the battery is going to read that back verbatim. After that, the fire mission is over, and you are both free to move on to the next set of targets if there are any. That wraps it up for episode 2. And in episode 3, I'm going to be going over the immediate suppression. So stay tuned for that.